Most podcasts talk about customer experience like it lives on a slide. This one talks about what actually happens when the meeting ends. Welcome to Confessions of a CX Executive. I'm JP Dumas, former CX executive, and this is a show where we have honest conversations with leaders who've been in the chair, made the calls, and have owned the good, the bad, and the ugly that don't show up in conference keynotes. If you're responsible for results, revenue, churn, and team engagement, well, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Good morning or afternoon, I guess, for most everybody. Welcome to today's Experience Exchange session. Glad to see you joining us today. We're about to get started. We got people still joining in the room that I'll be letting in as we go. So Sean Albertson here, founder of the CX on the Rocks Collective. Excited to have you guys here today. As mentioned, this is the Experience Exchange. This session we have once a month, and it is really meant to be dialogue. CX on the Rocks exists to connect people and help navigate during times of really change that's going on right now due to AI and expectations on the rise. And customer experience is more important now than ever. And so having a community like this to share ideas and network. So as a reminder, we got some content up front. I'll introduce JP here in just a minute. And then we've got, we'll have some time in breakout rooms where we'll be able to, work with each other and talk with each other a little bit as well. So the pings have slowed down on my computer. There may still be some more people that join, but we've got a good quorum here. So I want to introduce JP Dumas from Austin, Texas. He is founder and CEO of CX and Growth Strategies. And he's been a longtime partner of CX on the Rocks since we began, and happy to have him here. And he's going to talk retention decisions and not dashboards. But I want to welcome him and welcome you all. And JP, take it from here.
Yeah, everyone, thanks for joining today. As I think back on my career, retention has often been that thing that's been relegated to the back office, the back corner, and doesn't always get the love. But I'm happy to say that the tide seems to be turning in that particular area. As many of you know, I've spent more than 2 decades in sales, customer retention, and customer operations. So really happy to be here. And so I want to talk a little bit about today's subject matter. So as you see from the first slide, first of all, can you all hear me okay? Just want to make sure we do a sound check.
All set?
All set. So when I talk about stop analyzing churn, let's be honest here. You think about most organizations you're in, especially when it comes to discussions about performance and metrics, we get a lot of love to sales and a lot of love to marketing. But how often does a company talk about churn? Not just analyzing it, but preventing it. If you're like me, my experiences have been, if there's time left, we'll get to the churn part and only tell us good news. After that, keep going. Does that sound like anyone's experience? Okay, so let's make the case here for retention and why it matters in the business. All right, so in real dollars, this is where your impact happens in your organization. And it doesn't have to be a real big impact. Small incremental gains in retention drive your dollars. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. So I've got a few stats here that I want to go over with you. If you're able to improve retention by just 5 percentage points, as you can see, Harvard Business Review and Bain have illustrated that's anywhere from a 25 to 95% increase in your profits. And why is that? Because these are your existing customers, getting them to continue to pay you. If you think about win rate, and what I mean by win rate is really comparing conversion rates. So if you go out and try to build new logos, what's your best conversion rate? 5 to 20%? You're going to get anywhere from a 3 to 12x lift in win rate simply by focusing on retention. And that doesn't even take into account the cost factor. So if you replace a customer that you lose, it's going to cost you anywhere from 5 to 25x to do that. So your cost to acquire goes up significantly. There's no guarantee that that customer is going to stay either. Investing in retention is probably the cheapest growth strategy that you have in your business. So I did some quick math at the bottom of the page. Real simple stuff, right? So if you had 2,000 customers who are at risk, who are paying you $100 a month, if you improve churn just 1 point, it's going to give you $2,000 a month. Now that's $24,000 over the course of a year. It doesn't sound like real dollars, but again, that's $24,000 over a year just looking at one cohort for 12 months. You're actually going to have 12 different cohorts throughout that year. So when you add that up and you continue this focus on retention improvement each month, that's actually closer to $300,000. And I know many of the businesses that you all run or that you all consult on, the dollar amounts are much larger than what you see here. But the point being, you don't have to have monumental improvements in results. You just need to tweak it a little bit and you will continue to retain these dollars. Now, let's talk about why dashboards don't fix churn. So I alluded to this earlier, how you often get focused on other parts of the business, but rarely on retention. So if I were to ask you, who's in charge of retention in your organization? Is it product? Is it sales? Is it marketing? Is it downstream and customer success? Like, who actually owns the churn number? And I think therein lies a lot of the issues that we see. We've got metrics, but we don't necessarily have ownership. And when that happens, nobody's responsible for the numbers, which means that no one's taking action. But if we do decide someone's in charge, what often happens is that focus is usually driven by some sort of fire drill. It becomes the flavor of the month, and you end up with a decision that doesn't survive Wednesday. And so we end up doing the same things, engaging in the same motions that drive the churn activity. And so nothing seems to stick. Now, if we assign an owner and we do decide that we're going to take an action, the third issue that tends to happen is we don't have a check back. Like, when's the follow-up? Like, when are we going to step in and measure? Like, we've got to get time on the calendar to say, well, let's circle back and see if the actions we've taken are moving the needle. Because it's very easy to fall back into our familiar routine, the business stabilizes, churn kind of comes back down, and we kind of go back to BAU. But we've got to have some discipline and rigor to continue to check on these items. So here's a simple fix. You take one signal, one owner, and you write your business rules around retention signals in simple language. And then you do a 30-day review, and we'll check back and see what happens. Now, here's a real simple framework that I've used in the past. It's 4 steps, real simple, works with just about any business. For example, the very first thing you do is you pick one leading signal. I call this a smoke signal. So this is a signal that you trust that is a leading indicator of the churn that's potentially happening in your business or is already happening. So for example, you sign up a new customer, they're not using your product right away. So you have no first value in the first 7 days or no usage in the first 7 to 14 days. That is a very clear flag that the product isn't meeting their needs. You may have issues where payments start to fail. Or, my favorite, you have customers who contact you multiple times in a very, very short window for an issue that we're aware of, but we haven't quite fixed. The point being is, find the one that matters to you and your business and settle on it. The second thing is, when that happens, write a business rule. If said signal happens, what do we do at that point? And then re-review if our actions have had any impact. So for example, if you got a customer who's seen no value in the first couple of weeks of onboarding, day 15, they should get an automated message saying, hey, something's going on. Do you need help? Can we get you through this? And then offer help immediately. You know, position it as concierge service, white glove. We'll get to you. We really value your business. The point being is write it so that anyone understands this is the prescribed action that needs to happen. And then as I've already alluded to, run this test for 30 days. Let's just track and see what metrics move. So is our time to value decrease, meaning that customers are using our product quicker? Are repeat rates coming down? Are our renewals going up? We should have some sort of metric that matters to the business, not just matters to the CX world or something like that. It is attributable to the bottom line. And then number 4 is fix the constraint. Once we've identified that there's an issue in the business or some sort of metric that we're tracking, let's figure out, is it a policy that we're putting the customer through? Is it a process that we're forcing our teams to follow? Is there a tools deficit? Whatever it is, let's fix that item and assign an owner and say, you're responsible for that, and kill the zombie work. And the zombie work simply means everything that isn't helping to support this mission. Sounds good? Now, I want to make the case for, again, why retention makes you the hero. Why does this matter? Why should you care? Why should you engage? It's real simple. There's 5 things that are measurable that will make you the apple of your CFO's eye. When you focus on retention, you have the ability to grow revenue without increasing headcount. And as we know, in almost all businesses, headcount is your most expensive cost. So you take your existing customers and you get them to buy more and get them to buy more faster. You know the phrase, increasing share of wallet. That's what you do. The second thing is you stop the profit leak. It's these tiny little drips in the business, these tiny headwinds that add up, that cause us to lose confidence in the customer, customer loses confidence in our product, and they're in the path to seeking another provider. Number 3, if you ask anyone who's customer facing in most organizations, they can tell you where the process breaks are. Matter of fact, they probably told us multiple times. So when we don't address these sort of things and we rely on the heroic efforts of our teams to keep customers happy and satisfied, we burn them out. So by implementing this sort of process and actually fixing the signals that drive churn, our team's going to feel heard, but more importantly, they're going to have higher satisfaction because now people can actually address the things that influence the customer experience in a negative manner. Number 4, you ship changes that people actually use. You're actually putting things in place that customers value so that your product or service becomes irreplaceable in their business. So it doesn't matter what you sell them, it matters what they use. And then 5th, the way you become a hero is now you become a cross-functional guru. You now have the opportunity to take what you see from churn signals and connect the dots across the business to really stitch together this customer journey, which talks about the things that customers like, don't like, and the things that lead to higher satisfaction, increase in spend, all of the different things that matter to not just a CFO, but anyone who's running the business. So again, the most important part of retention is you become the hero because you're protecting revenue that the company has already earned. That also lowers our cost to serve because we're no longer spending that money on the cost to acquire a new customer, but we're putting that money into the experiences that are going to drive lifetime value. And more importantly, we're going to give our teams higher satisfaction, reduce the friction in the business, and that has a flywheel effect on the overall business. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pause here and talk about what we're going to do in the breakout. But before I do that, Sean, did you have anything that you wanted to talk to the team about? I think we may have had a poll.
Yeah, absolutely. So great stuff, JP, and I appreciate that. And I think that's one of the things you're hitting on so hard is one of the bigger challenges in customer experience in general is getting to something financial to be, to speak the language of the CFO. And there is nothing more connected, I really think, that to customer experience than retention, or the flip side, churn. So I want to actually, I'm gonna poll the audience. I'm gonna launch a poll here, and you heard JP talk about kind of the breakdowns of where retention breaks. So I want to talk a little bit about where does retention break the most. So I launched the poll. Hopefully it popped up for you guys, but it's the three things that he mentioned. It breaks down because there's metrics everywhere, but no ownership. First choice. Second, decisions I love the point. Don't survive Wednesday. Decisions are constantly being readdressed and revisited. And then lastly, you don't check back. There's no change to really speak to. So we got a couple of votes here already coming in. All right. So ending the poll, so 50% is the no check back, followed by metrics everywhere, but no ownership, and only one who voted for the decisions that don't change for Wednesday. So it's all of these factors that come in, and I think it's one of those areas that really tying into that. So JP, why don't you jump in I just now shared the results. Sorry about that if you didn't already see them. JP, what are we going to talk about in the breakouts?
So the breakouts is going to be really fun. So each of you is involved in some sort of company one way or another, either consulting or you're sitting in seat, whatever it is. So what we're going to spend the next 10, 12 minutes on is I want you to think about the churn in your business, because I want you all to leave here today as a hero. So I want you to identify a churn signal that you are well aware of in your business. Talk about the types of decisions that ensure that churn continues because we haven't addressed it. But more importantly, isolate the constraint. Why does this keep happening, and what do we need to do to fix it? And hopefully the answer isn't fixed product, because again, we've got to get some concrete stuff that are data signals. And then I want you to leave with one decision, one rule that you can bring back to your team that says, you know what? If we just did this one thing, we think it'll have a significant impact on our overall churn. So again, 10 to 12 minutes, identify a signal, decide how you're going to fix that signal, eliminate the constraints, and leave with one clear rule for your next retention review. All right, I'm opening up the breakout rooms. You spend probably about 15 minutes in there. I'll send a note about a minute out. Might be up to closer to 18 minutes, but spend some time chatting, and we'll see you here in just a little bit. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. Did you have enough time, or did I cut you too short?
That was good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we could have gone on and on, but it was good to cover the basics.
Yeah, it's always a trick. Sometimes you want to stay a little bit longer, but we can continue the discussion here. So the great opportunity is we can continue the dialogue here as well. So hopefully you got to know some new people in the room that you were in. That's one of the things we want to do, is create connections and allow for networking and opportunities to meet with others. So hopefully you also can connect on LinkedIn and the like. But now it's kind of, let's talk a little bit about what we talked about on the room. So JP, you want to jump back in and lead us on a little bit of the debrief? I think you're on mute. JP, you're on mute.
There you go. Yeah, so the big constraint that came up immediately in our group was around price. Like, how do you overcome that if that was a signal for churn? And so what I wanted to redirect the team towards is saying, listen, customer success, customer support, some sort of back-end team has some data that tells you why people are leaving. Let's force rank that and just tackle one of those. Because price comes up when your service becomes just a commodity and undifferentiated. And so you've got to differentiate yourself in other ways for a customer to see the value. So anyone else want to chime in from that group?
That was a good recap.
Don't be shy. Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's, That is so true what you just
I
said.
can't. I got to jump in, Sean.
Oh yeah, please go for it.
I don't think it's always price related. And I look at that based on the customers that I work with. I mean, I am an advisor to, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's like, it's not always price.
Mhm.
And I tried to bring that out to say, yes, price is for some, but does that drive churn? Not necessarily. Something makes them look somewhere else first. So I think it comes to quality of product and service. And that's a measurable thing. I'll give you a flat example. I've been with State Farm for 40 years. 40 years I've had their car insurance and house insurance. My husband got 2 tickets, and now I'm getting my insurance canceled, which I've never had a ticket, never had an accident. But because he lives in my house, even though I put him as an exclusion, they decided to cancel me. And I said, 40 years, really? 40 years. So I took all my business away from them. My house, my company, everything. But that was when it came down to product or service. It was service. Are you kidding me? No loyalty.
But I really love that example though, because it almost feels short-sighted, right? Like if I looked at your overall basket of goods, right, and looked at the total value of this customer, am I really going to go hard in the paint for those items knowing that there's a risk? And so that, it's just looking at churn in a silo.
Right.
So let's think of a metric here, because I love the example too. If we were State Farm executives and we had this rule about, okay, when the risk of a person goes up to whatever risk score they assign, then we cancel. Do you think maybe they looked at, for each cancellation that we do, if we do 10,000 cancellations per year or whatever, what is the average lost business from those people if we take in their whole insurance, not just the car, but the house, the boat, the business, and all of that. And then from that, stop making decisions on, okay, if that average is low, then we continue with this. If that average is high, including the high 40,000 or whatever, then we don't do this.
It wasn't, and I actually know the root cause of this, because little did they know they were one of my clients at the time that I was working with. And I knew that their drivers were losses. And so they found in there that the biggest losses happen to these things that happen with these age groups, and typically it starts with vehicle or whatever. They don't look at anything else. They were looking at the fact that I have to pay out more than 1 or 2 losses, which they didn't have to pay for mine. He bumped into everything and got 2 tickets, so it's like, great, let him go get his own insurance. I don't care. Nope, he lives in your house. Well, he's an exclusion on he can't drive my car. What does that mean? And so, and I brought it up, and it was like, so it was all about mitigating loss. You get 1 or 2 or more losses on any policy, and they cut you out. That's it. And I was like, that was not smart, because I, of course, blasted it to everybody.
Of course.
Very interesting algorithm that was set up.
Yeah, I was like, I could no longer kindly have them as my customer, because I believe in integrity, and I was like, I can't do this with you anymore.
Yeah, I did similar, but not as extreme with my AAA membership. And then I was a member for 25 years, and several years back, and didn't really, again, you only realize what the experience is like when you actually need them. And 2 things happened that year, and both times they failed miserably, and it took multiple hours to actually get somebody to get assistance. In one case, they never helped at all. And I called them up, canceled it, and they didn't care. It's like, okay, process it, never called them back. And then even now, I have T-Mobile. I see there's a free, 1-year freebie. I went to go and take advantage of that. Put the code in, I wouldn't take the code. I'm like,
but this is where it's hard.
Another file
because,
on the website.
Yeah, they got millions of customers.
I know, but the thing was that I chose, you get the free code from T-Mobile. I go to the website. I'm like, okay, I don't think I have my account anymore. I selected the new customer. It didn't take it. It forced me to go to my old account, and then it wouldn't accept the coupon, the voucher had expired. And then since that T-Mobile has not been able to regenerate it, so I'm like, oh well, we've been without that for 5 years. I'll just continue without that.
I think we all have examples of bad experiences with companies, whether it's insurances, phone companies, or whatever. If we try to put ourselves in their shoes, if they have millions of customers, they obviously don't have the resources to go look into the details of every single example that caused churn. So if they have to look at it, they have to look at it aggregate with some metrics or some North Star that they're going to focus on to help improve the situation.
Sure.
So in this case, where would you guys think, whether it's the insurance company or the phone company, where would you think they should focus to improve the impact, knowing that these situations are going to happen, but minimize them and improve the impact?
Respectfully, I don't know if it's the right first question. I don't know if it's the right next question. So the first question is, how do you write the right algorithm? And I think JP gave us a good start there. But when a customer calls and says, hey, I'm a corner case, I don't apply, they've got agency, pun intended, to say, you know, you're right. And thanks, Shelley, for calling that out to us. Your individual agent there in your neighborhood, your State Farm agent in your neighborhood, or the person who works the call center. In both cases, once I've asked you to use your noodle a little bit, if you want to tell me to go pound sand, you can.
Right.
But being able to, for the CSR or the agent to go lobby for you and weigh the algorithm and what it's telling them against the reality of this specific situation, once someone's bothered to bring it up to you, you don't want to just tell them, I'm sorry, I can't do anything because you fit the numbers. I know you know that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what came back. And I go, seriously, maybe you should look at the fact that I've been here for 40 years. And they go, yeah, we can't even do that. And I go, oh.
And as Chuck
So
said,
smart.
car, house, boat, business.
Right, right.
Come on, folks.
I think
Umbrella.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, right? It is that holistic view.
Mhm.
But what grabbed my attention is you said there were 2 incidences. What happened after the first one? What was the outreach? What was the motion? What was the investigation? So my point is that what often happens with churn in many organizations is we're very reactive. We're waiting to the end of the line to address these things that are happening throughout the process. So if you had that first situation, I'd probably do some sort of check-in. Because had you known that the second incident would have led to a cancellation, if that's what the algorithm told them to do, maybe there's something different that happens. Right?
No customer service. It's broken.
Right. So it's really it's less about putting pressure on the end of the line of the business. It says, how do we look at these signals that are happening every day, right? Like, you know, there was someone who was just like you who had 2 incidents that also got canceled. Like this.
Oh yeah, there was a
case.
boatload of them. Yeah.
So what is happening? So the whole point of this exercise is to say, when these events happen, what is the correct tactic? How do we influence policy? How do we prevent future Shelleys from losing their coverage or deciding to go other places? Because that would be important to me, like 40 years of revenue. Okay, fine. I didn't just raise your rate. I just dropped you. That's a different sort of conversation. But my point is that as leaders, how do we, within those walls, influence that decision earlier in the process?
Yeah, and I think that one of the things too, if you think about it, I mean, the executives, you mentioned earlier about, the executives, what are they thinking about this, et cetera. Well, I bet they're blind to it. The reason they're blind to it is because they look at 2 types of churn, voluntary and involuntary churn, right? And they probably, Shelley, categorize that whole thing on good churn. So it hit it from even, because it was flagged by the algorithm.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that, but it's just, that's why I say we need to look beyond just the numbers, because it's not always about the numbers.
You were a risk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was a horrible risk. Never had an accident. My husband, on the other hand, he should not be driving anymore. I already told him that. He's not allowed to drive me. I'm just going to be honest. I get in the car, in the driver's seat. You can sit over there, Crash. Bandicoot. I'm good.
But still, It's easier to change insurance companies than to change husbands. So.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and I got a better rate, just happened to, but see, I didn't look because of the money.
Yeah.
Yep. The insurance says it's all numbers. So I totally get it that it's not all about numbers, but the reality is if they add 2 or 3 variables to that policy that says we're going to cancel when risk goes up to this level, and those variables may include seniority of the customer and average payment from that customer per year, and then put rules about it, it could resolve some of these situations. It's really, I know it's emotions and people and empathy and all that, but the reality is that numbers, you can play with them enough to improve customer experience when you're looking at the right numbers and setting the right rules. And in this situation, obviously, they didn't look at customer was with us for 40 years and they were paying us on average, whatever, $20,000 a year. We don't want to lose them.
Yeah.
So
I want to make sure we get into the other room too. So some of the conversation. So maybe Dave or Kate or any of you on the other room. What was kind of the conversation over there?
We talked a lot about different industries and business models. And so business to business technology or software as a service has a pretty good bead on churn and retention because it's a subscription. It's easy to do the math. Down into other industries like education, healthcare, utilities. We talked a lot about investment products. That can be a lot more difficult to really understand what does churn look like. Anybody else? Brian, you had some good ideas.
Oh, that doesn't sound like me. We spent time talking about looking at whether the problem, when it's churn, as people move away from certain products, is it just is it because of customer service, customer experience, or is it simply because they're outgrowing something or have decided it's not for them for some reason? Is it a product issue or an age and stage issue or a CX issue, and not treating each of those situations the same?
Yeah. Any other additions as we're kind of coming up on time?
How Chris experienced that conversation.
Yeah, I want to add something there. I think Kate called out something. Really, we started talking about kind of the client base, and she mentioned influencers today, right? There's so much influence out there from a outside perspective, like YouTube, right? A YouTuber might influence a client to move to another product, and we have a lot of young clients who are jumping ship to other products based on influencers. Now, that doesn't happen in my world as much, but it is something that I see with my kids. So that was a great conversation there.
There are two small points there. One is that, especially in B2C, if the execs are injecting the call recording analysis between the agents and the customers before they churn, like those typically could provide some signals which will help in kind of really helping with the other data they carry. If they don't have that signal or they are not looking at that signal, whatever the algorithm is, only telling the part of the picture. So this is something that we are also starting to think with the Gong and everything else to really see how our sellers are engaging in the B2B space, trying to borrow that idea and trying to understand, the customer's tone, the engagement, to get some early signals. And to the last point that was raised, the other aspect is very interesting is that as our kids enter, the generation is different. It's a Gen Z generation or whatever you want to call it. They have very, very minute, attention span. I mean, they don't want to listen to 30-minute spiel. I mean, they're on this Insta and Snapchat and all this great stuff there. If you can't catch them in that 2-minute or 3-minute, whatever time frame is, they just move to the next one, which is more slick. Unfortunately or fortunately, whether you accept it or not, this is what, the perception is. And these people will be your buyers. So you have to adapt to this medium and try to influence the outcome. If you don't do that, then you will, fail using the traditional G2M motions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're getting close to time. I think, JP, you've just got a little bit to close us out here.
The conversation we've had today has been a great one because, it's given us great dialogue. We talked about a lot of different industries, but that's the sort of thing that we want to do here. We want you to bring your business case. And if you want to be on the hot seat or whatever, and you want to talk about, hey, how can you fix my business? This is the place to do it. I mean, this is a CX Lab. We can do it here for you. It's been 30 minutes. You're going to get a panel of folks who are going to jump in and help you solve those particular problems. But before you do any of that, the first thing we want you to do is join this collective. If you like what you've heard, and we have these conversations on a regular basis, please, please, please join our collective. The second thing is, if you'd like to work with me personally, we can set up a call, 30-minute alignment. We can talk about your specific business and your needs. If you don't want to be in front of a group, but you want to talk separately, by all means, my information is available here. We've got the code, but most important thing, I want you to take some action now. We can fix these sort of issues if you're running into them either, in your business or your business adjacent. So that is my shameless plug. Thank you all for being here, but I expect to see some of you guys in the future. So, yeah.
Yep. And one last note. So cxontherocks.com is the website. Just join. It's free to join, and we'd love to have you. It's a lot easier. We push all the events to you directly through the community program versus having to find things on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So hopefully you'll join. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much. Great experience exchange today, and we'll see you guys next week. We've got a session, so take a look at that as well on CX on the Rocks website. It's got upcoming events. Next week we've got another event on Thursday, so we'll see you then. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, JP.
$99. Free 99. If today's conversation hit close to home, I want you to do two things. One, share this episode with someone who owns a number. And two, subscribe, because we're just getting started. I help CX leaders move from stalled execution to visible results before delays turn into credibility and retention problems for your organization. So if you're feeling the friction between strategy and execution, connect with me on LinkedIn or check the show notes and let's have a conversation. Until next time, this is Confessions of a CX Executive. Real talk, real operators, real outcomes.